Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog where I'm gonna be reading horror books. So this is my first intro that I record here in Italy, and I still don't know if this is the place where I'm gonna record other intros, but I just put my books back there to just be in the background, and we're just gonna go with it today and see if I choose another place for the future. But anyway, in this video I'm gonna be reading 4 horror books, and they are Foe by Ian Reid, The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson, In the Shadow of Spindrift House by Myra Grant, and The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. And obviously I'm reading horror because first of all, it's one of my favorite genres, and secondly, it's October, it's spooky season. And I was incredibly excited to read these books. At this point, I already read all 4 of them. And also, I just want to say that there are no spoilers in this reading vlog. It's completely spoiler-free. So, having said all that, let's just get into the video. Okay, so, first of all, I am still trying to figure out where to film in the new house, so we're just going with this green wall for now and just ignore the mess in the background. Also, when I do these videos where I read a few books, I usually talk about them and read the synopsis first, before starting to read them, but for these books, I don't really know much about them, any of them really. They just got on my radar somehow, but I know pretty much nothing, and I kind of want to go into them that way, so we're not gonna do the synopsis thing first. And right now, I am already 44% into the first book, which is Foe by Ian Reid, and this is a science fiction sort of horror book. And I want to read this one because I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things twice by this author, and it was 5 stars both times, so I just want to read more from this author. And in this book we follow Junior and sort of his wife Henrietta, I think that's her name, and they live in the woods, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and one day they get a visitor who is called Terrence, and he basically tells Junior that he was sort of selected for a mission in space, and yeah, it's just him, not his wife, and he is gonna have to leave his wife and go to space. And that man, he visits the house several times, and all of them are weird, and also there is a weird sort of vibe between him and Junior's wife. It feels like they already know each other, but they claim that they don't, and I am confused. And then even Junior and his wife start acting strangely with each other, and Junior knows that there is something strange going on, but he doesn't know why or what exactly is going on, but he also feels this strange vibe. And in that sense, it's pretty similar to I'm Thinking of Ending Things, just the unsettling feeling, the feeling that there is something very wrong going on, but you have no idea what. It's here. And another weird thing that is happening is when Henrietta or Terrence speak, they have quotation marks, which is normal, but when it's Junior speaking, there is nothing. There are no marks on the text when he speaks. It's just a normally written sentence and then a comma I said or whatever. So that is weird, and I am wondering why the hell he's written differently. And at the end of part 1, basically Terrence reveals to Junior and Henrietta what will happen while Junior is gone in space, and I'm what the fuck? And once again, Henrietta is still acting strangely. And so far, not a lot has happened in terms of the plot, but this was only 80 something pages because this is a pretty short book, so it's okay. So yeah, like not a lot of progression, but I am 100% here for the vibes because I am loving like feeling uncomfortable and I can't wait to see where it goes. So I will finish reading and I will tell you what I think about it. Okay, so I am still here in the exact same spot, and that is because I just stayed here reading Faux, finishing it. And so, yeah, I finished it. And this book was really, really fucking weird, which is exactly what I was expecting and hoping for from this author and this book specifically. And part 2, which was almost as big as part 1 or just as big as part 1, was a bit slow moving. I mean, it still had like the unsettling feeling. The vibes were still the same, but in terms of the plot, it was a little slow for me. But the plot twist slash reveal, I guess, in part 3 was so good and like horrifyingly good, and I absolutely loved it. And this is, like I said a while ago, this is a pretty short book, so I'm not gonna really get into details, but I loved it. And like, if you like books that make you feel uncomfortable and just make you feel like there is something wrong happening the whole time, I highly recommend, even though I still like, I'm thinking of ending things more, because that one was just, that was creepy, that was uncomfortable, unsettling, way more than this one, I feel like. And like, I absolutely love that book. And like, the ending of that book is just like, you know, like, wow. And I was expecting a similar kind of ending for this book, but it didn't have it. Like, the big wow thing was a little before that. So I didn't love it as much. And like I said, part 2 was a little slow for me, but overall I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, the plot twist was incredible. So I am giving this one 4 stars, and that is a very successful start to this reading vlog and a very successful start to my horror book reading in October. And the next one I'm gonna read is The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson. And I know literally nothing about this book. I just know that it has like very mixed reviews. It's either like 5 stars or 2 stars. So I am excited, intrigued, but also concerned. But yeah, I will talk to you again once I am about halfway through that. Okay, so I am 49% into The Boatman's Daughter, and in this book we follow Miranda, and she is the boatman's daughter, and she is basically connected to some bad people. She was forced into being connected with these people. It was really not her choice, and I feel like I can't really say what is going on between her and those people, because if I said literally anything, it would spoil kind of what the book is about. But apart from those people, she is also connected to a witch and a child that is kind of like her brother. He's not like her actual brother, like biologically, but they have, like, he has grown as her brother. And like, those people that I talked about, they are all like, they all suck. And I know that that is the point, but in some stories, characters that are horrible work, and there are stories where characters that are horrible don't work. And in this particular story, it is not working for me because I just want to stop reading about these horrible people because they are literally just frustrating and irritating me and making me want to kill them. And I could just solve all of that frustration by not reading this book. And I don't DNF books because once I start something, it really bothers me if I don't finish it. And so I don't think I could actually not finish the book because I would be like anxious about it. So I'm not DNFing the book, but if I did DNF books, I would DNF this one because I am just forcing myself to read it. I'm not enjoying it. I am bored. I'm not connected to the story. And like I said, all the characters suck. And honestly, I don't love the writing style either. Like, it is not working for me personally. And I mean, there was like one thing that I did like because there was like a fantasy supernatural part, and that part I did like. And also they have like a leshy that I think they say is a forest spirit or something, and I just remembered in the Witcher series there is also a leshy and it kind of looks like a tree. So yeah, I just remembered that. And yeah, that is really the only part that I actually kind of liked because the rest is like kind of, you know, real life horror, and that is not what I was here for. And like I said, I'm not invested in the story, I'm not connected to the story or the characters, and therefore I don't care about what might happen to them. And I feel like a lot of bad things will happen and I will not give a fuck. But anyway, I will force myself to finish this book and I will talk to you once I do. Okay, so I have finished The Boatman's Daughter, and honestly, I don't have a lot to say because my thoughts have not changed at all since my previous update. And I don't know if I mentioned it here or in my weekly reading vlog, but the reviews for this book are pretty mixed. People either love it or hate it, and I was hoping to be on the side of people that love it. And I think my camera is crooked. I don't know if I made it better or worse, but let's just go with it. So I was hoping that I would love it, but I really didn't, because like the concept was really cool. So, you know, there was potential there, but it just did not work for me. And also, I'm not sure I would consider this book horror because it didn't really feel like a horror book for the majority of it. It was more like, I don't know, a thriller. I didn't feel horror. And still, the only parts that I did enjoy were the parts that were kind of like supernatural, fantasy, and everything else I didn't really care about. And speaking of, the ending would have been like satisfying and I guess happy if I cared about the characters and what happened to them at all, but I didn't. So I also, like, I felt nothing at the end. So yeah, like the only thing that really kind of worked for me was the fantasy part, but there wasn't enough of it to actually make me enjoy the book, so I gave it 2 stars. And so the next book I'm gonna be reading for this vlog is In the Shadow of Spindrift House by Myra Grant, and I don't really know anything about this book other than the fact that it's a fantasy horror. And the reason like I really want to read this book is because I usually really like books by this author. So yeah, but I know nothing about the story, so I am gonna get into it and I will talk to you about it later. Okay, so I have read In the Shadow of Spindrift House, and I have read the whole thing because the book was pretty short. On Goodreads, it says that like the physical book is 200 pages, but my ebook was only 135 or something like that. So yeah, it was pretty short. And so in this book, we follow Harlow and her three friends. And when they were teenagers, they were all like kind of detectives. They loved solving mysteries and all of that. They even like actually helped the police of their town. And now that they're not teenagers anymore, some of them want to move on, do other things in life, but others, like Harlow, want to keep investigating mysteries with their friends. And so, since there is no consensus in the group, Harley finds them like a final mystery to go out with a bang. And that's like sort of a compromise. And the mystery is the mystery of Spindrift House, because there are three families that are like wanting the property and the house, and they want to know who it actually belongs to, because no one really knows, like the whole house is a mystery. No one is really sure who built it or who it belongs to now. And so they go to investigate that house, and things get weird from there. And before I get into my thoughts, I saw a review saying that this felt more like Seanan McGuire's writing than Myra Grant. And yes, they are the same person, but different pen names, I guess, and they do have very different styles. And Myra Grant is more like horror, science fiction, and Seanan McGuire writes more fantasy. And this did feel like more Seanan McGuire type of writing, like really fantasy, really magical. But I actually really like both, so that wasn't really a problem for me. And speaking of the writing, I just want to read the first page because it was so beautiful. Like, what a way to start the book. Nature is a force of curves and spirals, of soft radial lines feeding one into the other to form an interconnected web of compatible shapes. There are no straight lines in the organic world, only those which, through proximity to the softness around them, present the illusion of the ruler's edge. There is a curvature to the spine, the long bones of leg and thigh, the cutting surface of a tooth. Even the spider's web, vaunted architectural miracle of the insect kingdom, is curve upon curve when looked at with a discerning eye. In all of nature, only three things may build toward true straightness, true defiance of the organic curl. Crystals seek a stark, lifeless geometry, line leading into hard, unforgivable angle. Viruses, which may be said to bridge the gap between the unliving, unthinking mineral and the hot, ceaseless tempo of the animal, form viciously sharpened cutting edges, turning their own mindless bodies into weapons. And then there is the human race. See how they build, planning their domiciles with care, measuring and cutting and planning until every line is straight, every angle is exact. They compete to build the straightest wall, the tallest spire. They cloak their organic curvature in line upon line upon line. And then they look upon the natural world which came before them, which birthed them, which will endure long after they are gone. And they judge it, twisted and terrible, exclaim with disgust at the way it curves, the way it twists. They hate its softness, and hide their own behind wool and cotton, linen and canvas. They straighten their spines with braces and corsets, chase the curves from their limbs, conceal what cannot be made straighter, deny their origins, deny their eventual endings. Humanity is an aberration, an affront upon all that is right and true and holy. Like, that was so good. But anyway, moving on to my thoughts. So, like I was saying, I don't mind that this was more fantasy in terms of like my overall enjoyment of the book. But having said that, I went into this book expecting a horror book, expecting to be scared, to be creeped out, to be uncomfortable. And I was not. And also, like, I figured out the mystery, I guess, as soon as they got to the house, basically, because of one sentence that Harlow said, and also other clues that were available. But, like, I don't mind that. I just, like, I did like the book as sort of a fantastical mystery. That was fun. I also liked the characters, at least like 3 out of 4 of them. There was one that I didn't really like, but the other 3 I actually really liked, and I really, really liked the main character. And it was a fun story, but it was not what I wanted. It was not what was like advertised to me as, because it says that it's horror, and I didn't feel it. So I had a good time. The fantasy was fun. The mystery was also fun, and the way they solved it, the way everything came together, that I really enjoyed. Like, I enjoyed all of that, but I am giving it 3.5 stars because it was a good, solid book, but it just wasn't the horror that it was advertised to be. But anyway, we are moving on to our next and final book, and that is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. And I know nothing about this book. Once again, I am just wanting to read it because T. Kingfisher is the author of What Moves the Dead that I read a while ago and I really loved. So I just want to check more books out by this author. And yeah, I am gonna read half of it and I will tell you my thoughts. Okay, so it's still the same day and I am 50% into The Twisted Ones. I keep forgetting the title of this book. The Twisted Ones. And in this book, we follow Mouse, which is not the actual name of the character, but it's the name that she goes by, her nickname. And we follow Mouse as she goes to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother passed away recently and she is basically gonna clean out the house. But what she learns is that like they weren't close at all. So she is not really like familiar to the present state of the house. And when she gets there, she realizes that her grandmother was a hoarder. So the house is full of stuff. And while she's trying to clean it out, she finds a journal. And the journal is not her grandmother's. It's actually her step-grandfather's, who has died before her grandmother, and she starts reading it. And he describes some really weird, creepy things, and then really weird, creepy things start happening to Mouse as well, and I love it. And I also really like Mouse herself. And in this book, just like when I was reading Foe, there is that unsettling, uncomfortable feeling that I want when I'm reading a horror book, so I also love that. And the writing is as creepily descriptive as it was in What Moves the Dead, but at the same time, the character has like a completely different voice from the main character of What Moves the Dead. I think their name was Alex. And yeah, Mouse is, I feel like her thoughts are really funny. She's really like she tries to cope with fear by having random funny thoughts, and I really enjoy that. And I'm having a great time with this book, both with like her internal thoughts and also all the horrible things that are happening to her. I am really loving it, and I will update again when I finish it. Okay, so I have finished The Twisted Ones, and I almost didn't read this book for this vlog because I was kind of running out of time, but I'm really glad that I read it because it was my favorite of the video. And in this second half, things got even weirder and creepier and scarier, and I loved it. I am not really gonna get into any details because it would spoil the whole mystery of what was going on around Mouse's grandmother's house in the woods. all the creepiness, so I'm not gonna get into any of that, but there was just a creepy atmosphere in this book that I loved, and I also continue to love Mouse and her sense of humor. And there was actually a point where I was super stressed and worried about Mouse, and not only her, some other characters as well, because there was one other character that was just so funny and so incredible, and I just loved her basically as much as I love Mouse. And yeah, like I really enjoy the characters, I enjoy the plot, I enjoy the creepiness, and I also really enjoy the pacing. And I had a really great time with this book, and I really recommend, and I gave it 4.5 stars. And let's just kind of wrap up everything that I read. So these were actually my first horror books of October. And we started with Foe, which was really creepy, really unsettling. It made me feel very uncomfortable, which was exactly what I was looking for, and I really enjoyed it. Then things kind of went downhill a little with the Boatman's daughter especially, but also like the Shadow of Spindrift House. Like I enjoyed it, but it wasn't, you know, as great as I expected it to be. But then everything came together in the end with the twisted ones, which I loved. And I feel like with horror books, I love horror, but I think it's the genre that I find, like out of the genres that I enjoy, obviously, I think it's the genre that I find harder to find books that I absolutely love. But when I find books that I absolutely love, it's just incredible. And the twisted ones was near perfect in my opinion. And so yeah, I am very happy to finish on this good, happy note. And I really enjoyed reading these books, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!